motorhomediaries.com.
Fall of 2005, DPA conference, Long Beach, California. MS patients shouldn't fly long periods of time. I did. Within a day, I'm in the emergency room at Long Beach Hospital. I have to stay in the hospital for 2 days. I get IV to get rehydrated, and they send you down the road. So the next day I'm laying there, my spasms and pain started to act up, and it became time I had to take my meds. So I always keep an emergency joint with me, and I didn't really know where to go, what to do, but I figured I was in California. I came from Vermont. They had a law since 1996. So I assumed it was legal in the hospital. Say they must have a room for me. They'd shut the door. They'd, you know, do something. So I called in the nurse and I gave her my card. And I said, you know, where can I smoke? How do we do this? And apparently I was the first person in the history of the Long Beach Memorial Hospital to ever legitimately show someone a medical marijuana card and ask her to smoke their meds. I find that in itself is crazy right there. She goes, she brings it to the head nurse. There's conversation in the hall. Head nurse comes in and she wants to know if I have any marijuana on me, or if I expected the hospital to provide it. I assumed this was a trick question early on in the show, and I said neither. I have a friend that can bring me some. I just really needed to know a place where I can go do it, because I'm starting, and I was starting to twitch a little bit. My legs were starting to cramp up. And if I get to a certain point past, there's no sense in doing anything. You've got to take it down. You've got to ride it out. You can't get over 5 or 6 in the pain spasm scale. They'll be right back. They leave. They take my card, oddly. More talking in the hallway. It was a very quiet hall that day. Next thing you know, I hear Miguel, who's a little wheelchair-toting guy, and Alan, who's a nurse. We'll call him Gay Alan. God bless that man. He had on a black nurse jumpsuit, long blonde hair, and he was gay, and he was a nurse, and he loved being both. And they were giggling about my problem out in the hall. Oh, pot smoker, ah ha ha, dope head, oh well, if he did it. And I just kind of yelled out, well, if you fucking guys knew the truth, you wouldn't be talking like that. Well, I give them both credit. They both walked in the room, and they said, well, tell us. And I did. And I told them how it did work for my pain, how it did work for my spasms, how it did work for me. And they said, well, what do you have to do? I said, basically, I just got to get the hell out of here. Go somewhere, take a shower, and I can smoke in the shower. A few more minutes go by. The head nurse now is still. She's gone. Little do I know, she's calling head of security, who, little do I know, is calling the Long Beach Police Department, who, little do I know, is calling the DEA. So I didn't know a hell of a lot. I was just in pain and spasm in my room with an IV hooked up to my arm. Miguel comes in. He said, if we're going to go, we have to go now. He said, you all set, buddy? I'm sitting there with my Thorazine slippers on. I got a Bic lighter and my 3/4 of a fatty emergency joint that I keep with me at all times. A little house coat on. I'm sitting like this, and I'm starting to, you know, I have to get in hot water, and I have to smoke some weed. You look out the door, and there's Alan, and he's facing the wall. And this little nurse's station's like right there. And he looks to the left, and he looks to the right, and it just goes like that. That subtle, that simple. That was our cue. Miguel whips me out in the wheelchair, whips me by the nurse's station where there's no one to be found, gets me in an elevator, brings me up 2 floors, brings me into a shower. So I get in there, and my IV's plugged, and I light my fatty, and I'm smoking, I'm sitting there in hot water. And it's just like, and my arms and my legs and my whole internal, everything that gets spasmed, slows down. Take a nice hot shower, take the roach, put it back in the slipper, smoke, knock on the door. Miguel gets me, down the elevator we go. He's trying to fly me back to get me back to the room before the head nurse gets back. But There's the head nurse. There's my floor nurse right at the nurse's station. How is your shower, Mark? So obviously someone told them that they took me up in the shower. And I said, oh God, I said, it really did help to calm down my muscles a lot. It was helpful. Oh good, we're just trying to figure everything out for you. Oh, that's wonderful. I appreciate that. Again, that was code word for we're just waiting for the Long Beach police. And I'm 3,000 miles from home. I'm in a hospital bed. I'm dehydrated. I have MS. I collapsed. I have an IV in me. First of all, what danger am I to anybody? 2 minutes later, in comes Rich, who's a little bigger than Pete here, a little better shape, kind of a Hispanic-looking fella. Nice guy. Came in, introduced himself, and he had Officer Mike with him. Officer Mike was this gigantic Hawaiian-looking dude with a chest. I mean, and he stood there with his arms crossed. Like this man was just a huge barrel of a human being. And they're both looking right at me. Hi, I'm Rich Lonesome, head of security, and we're just trying to determine whether you have what we would consider a personal amount or a sellable amount. I looked around, I'm laying there, and I'm like this. Now, the only vein that'll support an IV is my right arm. The rest of my body, it's too weak, it won't do it. That ought to tell you something. And I looked at him, and I said, Jesus, Rich, I said, you're a pretty rugged-looking fella. I figured you can probably take me. I have no idea why you need Officer Mike here. And Mike, he just started to smile. He got a smile on his face like, this guy, you know, he knows what he's talking about. You know? And so I told him, I said, listen, I smoke a joint every, 3-4 times a day. Here's why I do it. Here's why I have it. It's fine. You can go outside where they smoke cigarettes and you can do that. The only problem is we can't guarantee the hospital will let you back in once you leave. And I'm like, wait a minute. If I go outside and smoke, you're telling me I might not be able to get back in. Well, we can't guarantee that. You guys have a law. Well, it's different parts of the state. It's different. Well, then why the hell does state law even exist if that's as good as it's going to get? I said, Rich, I'll walk out there. I'll smoke a joint. I'll walk right to the doors of the emergency room and I'll collapse on the ground. The law says you got to pick me up, bring me back in. I said within an hour I'll be in the same bed with another bracelet on. Well, that's up to you. Guess it was. So we just want to make sure. Nice meeting you. Nice knowing you. Officer Mike, Nicky Hoy, my brother, and out the door they go. Within 5 minutes, the head nurse comes back. God, she was helpful. She was just helpful. She's always seemed to be there with that really helpful, thoughtful, how you doing, Mark? Knife in my back. She hands me back my card. Little did I know, because again, I didn't know a hell of a lot, that she'd already mimeographed it, sent a copy to the DA, so I'm in the Long Beach, so I'm just... So the next morning, we have to go through the same thing. It's not as dramatic this time. It's more well planned. It's between nurse shifts. I take my shower, blah, blah, blah. I only had a roach. That was enough to get me to about 7 in the morning. They said I could leave at noon.